Hi guys, in the last video we had a simple cannon that could shoot a cannonball when it started, and it was pretty cool. Um, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the shoot method. The cannon doesn't shoot automatically. The player has to shoot the cannon, which brings us to the main goal of this video, which is to get the player to interact with the cannon. And basically what this means is our player controller is going to have different kind of modes where in some modes the player will be running around the world like he does now. Let me re-enable our player. Okay, there he is. So in some modes, at least in one mode, he can run around the world. And then in another mode, he should be able to come up to the cannon and interact with it. Okay? And we have to kind of activate these different types of modes for the player. There are a lot of ways by which that can be done, but we are going to simply put it all in the player controller. Right. One of the things that came up while we were talking there is that there's like this little time slice error. This is due to the Unity editor, and so that's not me. I'm just going to push through it. Hopefully you guys are not having that weird error. It doesn't seem to interrupt the game too much. Right. Player controller needs multiple modes. I'm going to control that with just an integer. So right up here there will be a very important integer in the player controller called mode. And let's start with just a couple modes. And we could do this with an enum. There are slicker ways to do this, but I'm just going to use an integer. 0 for moving around. And we'll start with 1 for interacting or aiming cannon. Okay? Cool. Let's do it. So, long story short, we're going to divide our code inside of update into all of these if statements that check the mode and do different things depending on the mode. For example, this is the player move mode. And in that situation, we're going to set the animator and control the camera. I'm going to go ahead and say that if we are not in the player move mode, the animator should have its horizontal and vertical values turned off. I want to point out, I think that maybe in some demos I've used the name horiz, and here I'm using the whole word horizontal. So just pay attention to whatever animator parameters in their names. Anyways, here we go. So another mode that we can be in is mode 1. And that mode is the one where we're interacting with a cannon. This will be, I'm going to call it cannon aiming right now. I might change it later. So how do we want to enter into this mode? Let's set ourselves up with some debug. Cannon aiming mode. So we'll figure out how to aim later, but how do we want to turn on cannon aiming mode? Here's my idea. I'm going to build a trigger around the cannon stand. If the player is in that trigger and he hits spacebar, we'll enter that mode. Let's talk about how this is going to happen. 1, cannon stand. It needs a trigger around it. Here's the cannon stand right now. It's that block of concrete. If you're anywhere near the cannon stand, I'd like you to be able to operate the cannon. Thus, cannon stand already has a collider. I'm going to add a second thing to this. It's going to be another collider, but the second collider is going to be a trigger. And it's going to be a lot bigger. Maybe I make it 2 by 2. Is that too big? Yeah, interestingly enough, when I see that, I kind of want to make it by 3 so that you, yeah, it is a pretty big area by which you can operate the cannon. But whatever, you guys can tweak that if you want later. So you have to be standing in that area to operate the cannon. I'm going to shift it a little bit towards the back as well. So let's see, the trigger needs to shift backwards, which would be -1. There we go. Anywhere inside of that area you can operate the cannon, on the sides, on the back, right on. I've got a cannon stand prefab, so when I make these changes, I hit apply. That way the prefab gets updated as well. All right, now for some code. We have to check to see if we're inside this trigger. It's a trigger. That function is called onTriggerStay. Let's go look it up. Collider on trigger stay, Monty behavior on trigger stay. Actually, all these are the exact same method. Here is a fine example. Here we go. What do I want to do? I want to check if we're in mode 1. That is, if we're in the running around mode, and if the user hit, and I'm going to map this to the jump function. Right, those two seem like the right criteria. Then I'm going to set the mode to 2. All right, fine. That is a start. Actually, I'm going to be a little bit pickier about my mode setting functions. I'm going to add a couple of functions to set modes. Set moving. This sets mode equal to 1. And then I'm going to set aiming. I'll give them even better names. Set moving mode. Set aiming mode. All right, I'm creating these functions for a good reason, by the way. I want to be able to use invoke to delay these functions on some situations. But anyways, for now, just a direct call to set aiming mode. We'll set the mode to 2. Okay, so on and on. Now, if I am in that collider, in that trigger, I guess I should check the name of the trigger. So if other.tag is equal to friendly cannon and mode equals 1. Okay, what's going on here? What we don't want to just automatically set aiming mode when we enter any trigger. It's got to be a friendly cannon trigger. And I don't even know what the concept of a friendly cannon is yet, but go ahead and reveal it now. We're going to use tags quite a bit. I'm going to hit add tag, and I'm going to add a new tag called friendly cannon. Tags are a very powerful way to kind of group items. So friendly cannon. There we go. So now I want the cannon stand to have the tag friendly cannon. Cannon stand has the trigger. It's got the tag friendly cannon. Sweet. So now when I enter in that trigger, it can say, oh wow, you're next to a friendly cannon, and we can hit set aiming mode. We have to do something else though. We have to get the actual cannon controller. Now look at this cannon controller. It is attached to the cannon, which is a child of the cannon stand. So we have to navigate that carefully. Here we go. Cannon stand is the other that we just ran into. So I can say, assuming everything works out, that the cannon controller, so 1, here's the story. We may or may not have a cannon to control. And if we do, we want to do stuff with it. By default, it'll be null. That is to say, we won't be controlling a cannon. But if we find one, I want to grab it. So I'm going to say cannon equals other. Other is the stand, so it's going to be other dot transform dot find child. Let's understand what's going on here. All of these parent-child relationships are controlled by transform objects. The cannon stand has a child called cannon. It is the cannon game object that has the cannon controller script. So cannon stand is other dot transform dot find child cannon dot get component cannon controller. All right, pretty crazy. If we've done all that, I can say I'm in cannon aiding mode on cannon.name. Here we go. Press play. My guy is over here. If I press space, nothing happens. If I move close to the cannon and hit space, hopefully everything works great. And if it doesn't, something's broken and we have to fix it. Okay, I'm back. A nice demonstration of why to use enums. I said 0 was for moving around and 1 was for aiming, and then I didn't stick to that convention. If you're in mode 0 and you hit space, then you would go to aiming mode. So check this out. Mode 0 is running around. Mode 1 will be aiming. All right, fine. Now it should work. And again, got this print statement here. We look at the scene. We check the cannon stand. We see that there is a massive, massive area that you can be in. So when I'm running around, if I get anywhere near him and I press space, the console starts showing that I'm in aiming mode. I've got some other printing going on here, which I don't need. But cannon aiming mode did turn on, so I'm happy with that. So now we want to be able to aim the cannon. And then we want to be able to shoot. Okay, fine. Let's do that in the next video.